Is the opposite of misogyny misogyny? I'm just wondering. Anyway, today was pretty uneventful. Nice moon. I didn't do much when reading Proverbs, which I did a lot of. I finished Psalms. Sorry, I always say Psalm. Started Proverbs, almost done with Proverbs. And today's church sermon was in Proverbs, which is kind of funny because it just talked about everything I just read about. But I was adding a ton of things. Like, Lord, I have a document of verses which you can find in my description of my channel. And I just, like, literally every single chapter of Proverbs, I was just adding 3 more verses, because 95% of Proverbs is saying pretty obvious stuff, hang out with fools, you'll become a fool, the wicked are bad, and their their folly will bring pain upon you, a quarrelsome wife is bad, using the same terminology and conveying the same messages, a sluggard and all that stuff. But there are just those few verses which really stick out and are really good. And I was thinking about making a short or a video just going over those verses I like, but then I realized if someone wanted to see them, they could just go to the document and read them. So now half of the entire wisdom section of my verses talk is just Proverbs constantly, because they're so good. Some are like still obvious but really well worded, and some are just like informational and smart and wise, instructional, all that stuff. So yeah, bunch of new Proverbs, because that is what they are Proverbs. My dad decided to have one of those days where he constantly annoyingly overreacts to absolutely every single thing every 2 seconds. I attempted to do what some people can do, especially my mom, and ignore him. But man, my brain is not wired to ignore things. I will instinctively pick up on everything at all. If I see a light, I won't ignore it. I will lock onto that light. If someone's talking in the background, I will hear and process what they are saying. I cannot force myself, even if I'm like hyper focused on something. If someone's talking, I'll hear and understand what they're saying, which is so annoying. If my sister is deciding to talk at 11:30 p.m. when I'm trying to sleep, and she makes sudden, loud sounds that jolt me awake and I can't go to sleep because of that, and then I get hot, okay, I'm not going to go on the whole rant. But if she's doing that, I can't just ignore it. My brain doesn't ignore things. My brain pays attention very sharply. Which is funny, because sometimes when I try to focus on things, I'm unable to focus. And it's like, why? Why you do that? I don't understand. Why you do that? I don't understand why you do that. A hole. A hole that is like a pot. It's not really like a pot. It's more of like a... Honestly, potholes are typically thin like that. I call it a panhole. And sometimes they're bumps. But those are just called bumps. Why not bumps and dips, Why is it bumps and potholes? Why do I gotta have a fancy word for a dip? Or a sinkhole, or a hole. A hole. A freaking hole, that's what they are. Then again, if you've watched Vsauce's video on, I believe it's called How Many Holes Do a Human Have? Hole isn't a very accurate term. So, best not to use that. But a dip is accurate. Or a crevasse. Or a valley. So many terms, but we decided to go with pothole. And pothole only really applies there. We don't use the term pothole anywhere else. So that's just kind of weird, isn't it? Pothole. And like, if you dig a hole, so to speak, and throw in a bunch of people who do weed, is that a pothole? That's all I'm saying. Someone could make a joke out of that, but if I tried, it would be pretty long-winded and longer than it needs to be, and then it'd just die by then. So I'd probably have to do like an entire, like a joke added into a very long setup kind of thing, So it starts building the setting and all that stuff. That's just part of the setting. And someone said, make sure not to drive over that. You'll hit a pothole. Hitting potholes is bad. Something like that, Just add it in, but not the main focus. Wingardium Leviosa. It's Wingardium Leviosa. Wingardium Leviosa. Oh, I dropped my wand. As a sluggard, I will not pick that up. I'm not a sluggard. Well, okay. No, I'm not gonna say that. Also, today I was amazed at... I'm not really amazed, and I didn't really have necessarily a revelation, because revelation is when you first understand something. It was more of a re-revelation. Like, let me think of the right word. I think re-revelation is actually a pretty good term, even if it's inaccurate, given the definitions. But it's that sort of thing when you say, I'm always amazed when... I don't think there's a word for that. But yeah. I thought about how, so in the sermon today, he says people think they're good people, and I'm like, I know, I understand people typically aren't as informed. Okay, I don't want to sound like a narcissist, but speaking from logic, and I'll use it accurately, the majority of people I've seen displayed in social media forms, news, in books, in movies, and any form of media or in person seems like they would say or have said they find themselves to be a good person. And of course, there are many people who say they would not claim themselves to be that. I'm sure there's a large majority that, if intended to put their thought towards it, would not say that because they understand how illogical it is. But to the many people who would say, I think I'm a good person. Ooh. There we go. It's like, the logic behind that is insane. If someone were to ask me, do you think you're a good person? I'd say something to the effect of, I strive to be the best I can be, and obviously goodness, supposedly, can't be measured no matter what you do. Even specifying certain acts isn't necessarily quantifiable, so you can't compare goodness to anything else, which is why you cannot compare one person to another, even though they may seem to do many more good acts, and more can't really be defined because, every thought, every moment is an act or an intention, so you can't necessarily quantify goodness in any sense at all. It's much too vague, so you can't generalize it. So my response would be similar to that. But other people could say, yeah, I think I'm a good person. It's just like, it honestly baffles me, and I have to realize this frequently. I will try to act like, again, not generalizing every human there is, but I'll act like people think. So then I'll go, but why don't you just, because they don't think. They just face value, Their light receptors pick up photons. Their ears pick up vibrations in the air molecules. And all their senses contribute. Their brain gives them a message. And then when they receive this information, this thing we've constructed called language, where certain vibrations of the air created through our vocal cords, vibrating the air molecules, reaching our ears, we interpret this as certain messages. We associate these things with certain patterns. And they pick up these patterns, and without any intentional thought, without going deep into their reaches of knowledge and forming conclusions and thinking beyond where they've thought before, they simply spew out an answer saying, I'm a good person, just at face value. And they do this everywhere. Information come in, information go out. It's like a mirror. One sec. So back to what I was saying. A mirror, I believe, is what I was saying. The information hits them, it sort of processes it, and it spits it right back out. It spits out what it receives. It spits out what it should spit out based on what it receives. And it's just like, how is there no thought? I've written about this in many documents. I mean, even the document I wrote about being me, the basis behind everything is thought. That's a core principle of logic and, reality in itself. Thought is behind, it's multiple sciences, physiology, psychology, religion. Thought is so massive. Yet somehow people manage to just exclude it from their life. And that's fascinating because, seriously, I do this legitimately probably every day when I think about, anytime I think about something someone does. I'm like, why didn't they? Oh, because they didn't think. My dad taught me this over every single, probably hundreds of times. I've said, why? Why did they not think to do this? Why didn't they do that? Why didn't they say this? Why wouldn't you think to do that? Why would you do? Because it's just they don't think. Just imagine a world where everyone thought. You see, one thing I've made a comparison between is, I'd say there's let's say two types of bad people. Obviously a massive generalization, but there's someone with bad morals and they're stupid and they don't know. They're greedy, but they don't know how to get what they want, i.e. my sister. So she wants things and she likes to be entertained by new stuff and she wants to look good, but she's quite unintelligent, so she doesn't understand how to get it. And she doesn't understand she understands how to play the games in some way. She does know how to make herself look good, but overall, if she had a high level of intelligence, she'd be doing this a lot better. But she doesn't. And then you have the people who, like many billionaires, want things and are very greedy and have very bad morals, and they know how to get it. So they will trample people and cause chaos and many other bad things to get what they want because they know how to get what they want. So there's the people that want things but don't know how to get it, and the people that want things but don't know how to get it. And you have people who don't want things. If you don't want things and don't know how to get it, then you're just, I guess, normal. But if you don't want things, even though you do know how to get it, you are showing self-control and humility, and that is a very good thing. I personally want things, and I try to get them, but then again, wanting things, again, generalization. By this, I'm referring to money, power, fame, etc. So I don't strive for that. In fact, I realized that while listening to a sermon today. I was like, yeah, really. A lot of people's goals in life is to, be financially stable, of course, but they want a lot of money, or they want a cool car, or they want all these material possessions, or, they want to have a bunch of girls. They want to live that luxury life. And I realized, okay, so I thought I desire money as well, but I only desire money because that's what you need to live in this society. If you don't have money, you're going to live a terrible life. And in fact, in Proverbs, many times he talks down on poor people. And in context, that's referring to people who don't try to improve their lives. So they're lazy and poor. And I was like, so yeah, that's how society has always been. You have to work for your money. And with the money, you live. So of course I want money, but I only want money so I don't have a terrible life. My two biggest goals in life are to be stable, both, emotionally, financially, security-wise, just stable in every aspect, and to have a partner. And then I was thinking, maybe that's one reason people want kids. Because at face value, it does seem like, okay, you want to have a partner just so you can be with someone and just have someone by your side for a few benefits to make you happy for decades and do nothing else. Obviously, my goal is to spread the word and hopefully influence as many people as I can. If I do get a stable job or something, ideally, I would like to it would be nice if I were famous. So, not to a massive degree, but enough to influence more people and hopefully change their minds. And, I like to have a good impact on the world, because I know if you're just trying to improve people, in fact, the Bible did talk about that. Your goal shouldn't be guiding them to better, mortal forms, but to God. And of course I want to do that. But, people on earth should still be good, and you should still have good morals, and you should think many of the things come from and lead to God. A lot of stuff says, foolishness comes from denying God, and wisdom comes from God, and all these things. There's a cat there. So, I guess what I would ideally like to do is have a large following. A following would be people who agree with my message and just want reaffirmation. So I don't necessarily want that, unless they're there you go, soldiers of God's kingdom. I want to have as much influence as I can and make people into better people and just improve the world. That would be amazing. That's, again, I lead so quickly into perfect world scenarios. I think this would be cool. Or this. Wait, why don't they do that? Okay, we should. And then there's the perfect world where everyone is perfectly moral and no one does anything for evil. And that does not exist. I'm so optimistic and I think so fast and I get carried away so easily. I have that go big or go home mindset to such a strong effect. So the simplest ideas for me lead down into the pit within a second of just the world isn't perfect. We'll never have these things. People don't think. So all these things we could have, I don't have the power to change, and I would have to dedicate my life to change just one of these things. Like you see these people saying, when I was a child, I wanted this, so I went to college to do this, and I grew up, and now I'm doing this. But it's just for one small aspect of every single thing on Earth. Like, sure, improve the electrical lines. Sure, reduce carbon emissions. Sure, protect endangered species. You're doing a great thing. And if you actually have that much power over it and you're actually providing a lot to that field, then great job. But there's just so much in the world and you can't change it all. But if everyone thought and everyone tried to be less evil, then the world would obviously instantly fix itself, and that wouldn't be the point of Earth. So unfortunately, I just gotta, suck it up. Serenity prayer. Give me the strength to change what I can, tolerance to deal with what I can't change, and the knowledge to identify which is, I don't know the serenity prayer, I just know the general idea of it. The baseline of it, the most important part of it is, as I've said many times, change what you can change, and if you can't change it, suck it up. The world is imperfect. I would love it if I had a massive influence on the world and I was able to make a huge following think, and I was able to have a positive influence and influence many, many people. It's like sometimes you think, okay, Keanu Reeves, let's say him. Amazing person. So yeah, he may be famous. He may be known by potentially billions of people. I don't know how many. A lot, I know that. But his fame is in movies. You go, oh, he's the guy in The Matrix and John Wick and other movies maybe. But not, of course you can know that, and then you can know he's a good guy, and you can maybe know a couple things about him, like he's a philanthropist and a couple of the cool things he's done. But he doesn't influence every single one of his followers. People like his acting roles and maybe follow his social media, but he's not an influencer. No, he's not. He's not an influencer. And ironically, the term influencer I don't believe is necessarily that accurate. Are they really influencers, or are they people showing off their artificial lives to occasionally promote a product to make some money? They're not really influencers. What is influencing about? I just went to Starbucks and got my pumpkin spice latte. What is that influencing? That's not influencing anything. Influencers is a strange term. A true influencer is someone who dedicates their following and the power that they have and the fame that they have to influencing people, hopefully positively, but many times in bad ways. And often it's for, physical benefit or financial prosperity. But I would love to have a large following and fame. And for the following I do have, the people who follow me and are already logical and already think, I would like them to be influencers as well. I would strive for them to hopefully be like me and change people's minds and help them and all that stuff. Because why have a following if all they're going to do is just agree with what you say and nothing else? That's kind of the idea behind my church, The Factory. Their motto is the other 6 days. And that, in fact, that was kind of what the sermon today was about. You shouldn't just, what was the word they used? I forgot the word they used, but you shouldn't just be a Christian. You should actually work towards that, influence other people, do good, remove evil from your life. You should actually act on it, So I wouldn't want to have a following just because they follow me and they like what I say and they want to get reaffirmed in their own beliefs. I would like them to, as well, help people. And the basis behind it would be Christianity, of course. I mean, there's not many better ways to spread the word than to have a massive following of people who want to be like you and telling them that the basis behind all of it is God. So that would be ideal. But that's ideal. Ideal is, ideal to say the least. Quite literally. How less can you say than what it is in itself, the word. Of course, you could say nothing, but I feel like that's saying more than saying the word itself, because you're just being redundant. How little is redundant? You would think redundant is too much, but if you think about it, in terms of meaning and what purpose they provide, redundant is the most minimal you can do. You can say something, but by saying again, you're increasing the word length and the time it takes to speak and the amount you have to read and the space of the page it takes up, but you're adding zero value. Psalms. No. So, yeah, redundancy is interesting. One thing, I have made a video on this before, I believe, but some people will go to one extreme. Either be fully redundant so nothing ever gets missed and everything's always covered and the message is fully pounded into them, or be super efficient, cut out absolutely everything that is not necessary. But no, efficiency isn't about deleting everything that is not core essential, and redundancy is not about adding in so much to where you'd have to be brain dead to not understand the point. There should be a balance, perfectly balanced, as everything should be, or all things should be, sorry. Yeah. So be efficient to the point, include what's needed, and apply redundancy where potential for something to be missed is. Just really all of it is being logical and thought out and efficient. So if you think constantly, and of course knowledge is a big aspect of this, you could have the intent to think as much as you can and strive to be the best person you can, but if you're misinformed or ill-informed, then you won't be able to do anything about it because you just don't have the knowledge to do it. You could think, I have the intention and the motivation and the dedication to write the most perfect summary of this topic. But if you don't understand it and you don't have a large vocabulary of words to make things more summarized and accurate, then you won't be able to do that. Thankfully, I'm very well informed. I mean, I do practically no school because it's online school, and I spend a lot of my time in actual education, watching educational videos, science, etymology, history, engineering is a large part of it, quantum physics, all that stuff. So I have a greater understanding, and I'm not sure I get my literary skill. In my opinion, and in many other opinions, I've only ever had one critical review of my writings. It was from a snobby person who took like a poetry class and said, well, your stanzas aren't very poetic and they're not writing the line, the fifth, the haiku. Shut up. I don't care. I'm writing how I want. Everyone else enjoys them. I like my poetry. I think it's pretty well written, which is strange because I don't read, and I don't really have any basis. I don't know why. I never really thought about that. Why do I have my writing ability? Of course, it's fully subjective. Some people could absolutely hate it. But where did I acquire my ability to? I never really read as a kid. I don't really read right now. Well, crap. Is it through videos? No, because none of them were any, occasionally there's some ironic use of fancy wording, but like Proverbs. When I was reading Proverbs, and still am, I got a lot of inspiration. But of course, if you read a lot of Proverbs and you try to write similar to how Solomon did, it's going to be pretty good if you do it well. But I didn't read, so till now I haven't been reading the Bible. So where did I get my ability to write? Could just be a blessing, you know? I was given vocabulary and I was given grammar rules. To be fair. Okay, well, one reason. I read a lot of comics, not books. Comic strips. Technically there were books of collections of comic strips, but in essence comic strips. Peanuts was probably a very large influence. It shaped my humor largely. So, Peanuts, Calvin and Hobbes, Foxtrot, Far Side, they basically provided the entire basis for my humor system. Not social media, not bad influences. Of course, brain rot, memes still provided some of that, but getting such like advanced and more adult and more mature humor at such a young age most definitely influences me. And in the document I wrote about being me, I mentioned that as well. That probably contributed a massive amount to my humor and my knowledge. I learned a lot of things from comic strips, especially Peanuts. One thing I would do sometimes is just I would be downstairs reading Peanuts, and when a word or a joke would come up that I didn't understand, I would ask my dad what it meant. So I learned a ton of words from comic strips. I learned a lot of like historical events and things because when I didn't understand a strip, he would explain them. And I couldn't tell you a single one of those now because of how long ago it was, probably when I was like 9. But I learned a lot from them. They influenced me. Good influences are good, by the way, in case you weren't aware. So I guess a lot of that too was the writing skill of the legendary comic strip writers. It's probably what gave me the largest influence, because I can't imagine a single other thing that would have given me the ability to write so, in my opinion, so well. So yeah, that's strange. I went on such a long tangent. I have no clue where I was before. I was talking about like writing. Oh yeah, if you have the will but you don't have the wisdom. Got the will but not the wisdom. Sounds like something my church would do, because every one of the sermons has a bunch of alliterations in it. I don't know why. He just likes to include as many alliterations as he can. He'd be like, the copious cornucopia of the created conscious is cremated in Christ. He just does that a lot. So yeah, will with no wisdom. Of course, wisdom and knowledge. I threw in wisdom to make it an alliteration, but knowledge is more accurate. So I frequently watched, and still do watch, and will continue to watch educational videos. Because as mentioned, having a better understanding of the world and how the world works in every aspect of it, the most important parts of it, science and engineering and quantum physics, the thing that makes everything up, as mentioned, can give you an existential crisis, which I partially had when I watched like 30 Vsauce videos in one day. That was interesting. But yeah, it is a little creepy to think too much about what makes up things, geometry, consciousness, the mind, social. There's a lot to it, a lot to the world. I'm sure you already knew that. I feel like only an infant would not think of how much there is to Earth and beyond Earth and everything, into the realm of conscious thought, which is even beyond physical. I will not go into a tangent of everything that exists. That would be way too long. But yeah, it's a lot. And I want to learn as much about it as I can. And I want to influence as many people as I can. So I watch those videos very frequently to become educated on many, many, many things. And education, knowledge is power, man. Wisdom is like the rarest jewel, as the Bible says. And I don't need to give as many examples. I mean, that's just one of those things that I could but I could go off on for 15 minutes, beating down the point, explaining every example and every demonstration. But there's not a lot to that. Just learn things. If you want to go to my channel and look at the people I'm subscribed to, Vsauce, Veritasium, Technology Connections, Lord, Etymology Nerd, Human 1011, a lot of those educational channels, New Mind, Fern, they teach you things. School does not teach you things. For 97% of school is completely useless, at least in America. Do not think that you're learning things and you're becoming smarter with school. You're memorizing stuff. That's all you're doing, and a very, 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 very minuscule amount of it is actually going to be useful. That's why all the popular YouTubers like Vsauce do not make videos about stupid Algebra 1 rules or some random historical event that had no significant impact on anything at all. They make videos on things that are actually interesting or will influence your life. My brain is currently wanting to say so much about the importance of knowledge and how much it can change your life. I don't think I'd like to. I would just like you to know the insane impact of knowledge. If you read Proverbs, wisdom is basically what all of Proverbs is about. Wisdom is saying the wise is like one of the key character traits of Proverbs. Even if you're not Christian, just read Proverbs. It's amazing. You'll learn a lot. And it really, really, really pounds the point into you to be smart. Get smart, for the Lord's sake. Great show. Very funny. I mean, I would call God if I could take my shoe off right now. Which I can. I can't take my shoe off, but I can't call God with it. If you know what I mean. Also, Agent 99 is beautiful. But anyways. Yeah. So learn things. There's a lot to life, a lot to being a person, a lot to consciousness, a lot to success. There's just... I don't want to give you an existential crisis, but there is a lot. So if I had to summarize everything, which is ridiculous to, again, say the least, and I believe even that would be redundancy, because is not summarizing everything ridiculous in itself by definition. It, of course, ridiculous is a descriptory term, which you could pretty accurately use to describe that, but I'd say that's practically a definition of it. Summarizing everything within seconds and a few words. God is one word you could use to summarize everything, but you know. That shadow looks like a duck. Come on, iPhone, focus. There you go. It's a duck. But anyways, summarizing everything. I would say think, learn, strive. So, that's a good collection of 3 words. Always think, have thought behind everything, and think in depth. Learn as much as you can, especially about morals and what makes up Earth. Just learn everything you can. Always take information from things. Always take lessons from the bigger picture, not just from the single events. I made a video or a short about that, about how individual events don't matter much. You should instead strive to learn the bigger lesson behind these things, and honestly strive in every aspect of your life to become the best person you can possibly be. Now, one thing I did mention in my document about being me, thought is the basis for everything, but the basis for becoming a better person and basically everything else, one step after thought, is self-control. If you can't control yourself, you can't improve yourself, you can't fix yourself, you can't grow as a person. So think and have self-control. In fact, that's even kind of what makes up consciousness and humans in the first place. I think, therefore I am, Rene Descartes. So thought is the basis. If we didn't have thought, we wouldn't. Yeah, that's a good, pretty good. Like Yellow Cake Productions, he's hilarious. He made a short. He said, so because there's nothing in here, and he's an animator, he opened up his character's head and there's no brain. He said, because I cannot think, therefore I ain't. Because yes, that is true. Thinking is what makes us be. And a step after that, having control over ourselves. And take that to an extreme. If you could not control your thoughts or your eyes or any muscle movement or anything you do whatsoever, you would be either paralyzed or a zombie. And you would not be able to make any progressive thought. But take that to the other extreme. Someone who has literal direct control, full brain power over everything every single cell in their body does. They would have rapid growth. They would have complete control over their actions. They would never be angry, never be sad. That is, if they had the intention to do so. But if you intended to be the most perfect person you could, and you controlled yourself beyond human limits, you would heal faster, you would function faster, you could override muscular limits, you would be a superhuman. You could forcefully tear your muscles in the most perfect positions to make your muscles grow faster. You could digest things faster, you could control everything in your body. And in terms of thought, you would never commit a sin because you have full control over everything you do, aside from things that would be accidental but which you can't control. But as long as you have positive intent, then you can make sure you do. If you have entire self-control, you're practically perfect, like Jesus. And if you have no self-control, you're not even a human. So just like is everything in improving yourself. Thought is the basis behind everything. Self-control is the basis behind improving yourself. So, to recap, think. Always think. Thought should be behind everything. You should think as much as you can. Thought solves problems. Thought solves conflicts. Thought gets you through things. Thought greatens your understanding. Always think. Think. Thought. It's amazing. Second, learn. No matter how much you desire to think, if you know nothing, for extreme, if you had literally no knowledge about anything and you were placed in a white room and you did not know how to control your body or anything, you would be completely immobilized and you would be useless. On the other end of things, if you knew absolutely everything, you would be an oracle and you would be all-knowing, which is an aspect that would make you similar to God, which nothing can be. So, the more you know, the better. Knowledge is power, that is true. And third, strive. Have the dedication to improve yourself constantly. Just always improve yourself. And if you think about everything and you know how to improve yourself and you have the dedication to improve yourself, you will improve. And when you do improve, you will be better. And the better you are, the better you are. That's redundancy, but in that case, I believe that redundancy is not adding no purpose. I believe that it is actually quite useful. Good is good, bad is bad. The better you are, the better you are. The more you think, the more you think. The more you strive, the more you strive. The more you know, the more you know. So, please take that to heart. Do not indeed take that with a grain of salt. Take that with infinite grains of salt, and then condense that salt into pure sodium and inject that into your heart to give yourself a seizure. Lord, just that's see, this is the perfect world thing again. If I could tell that to everyone and everyone truly accepted that, we would have a perfect world. But that won't happen. So just please strive to be the best you can. God bless you, and as always, adios.